Mary Wilson was packing her last belongings in her Boston apartment, thinking about her family's cottage that she would visit for Thanksgiving as she did every year. Outside the window, snow had begun to fall, creating a soft scene illuminated by the streetlights. Mary had earned respect as a successful antique furniture restorer, but that was outside her family. "Mary, your handwork is truly charming. But at your age, to be unmarried and making a living with such a hobby-like occupation," her mother Patricia's voice echoed through the phone. Mary took a deep breath to stay calm. Her parents, Robert and Patricia Wilson, were known as a prestigious New England family, and her father had built millions in assets as an investment banker. To them, their daughter living by handwork was incomprehensible. "Mom, this isn't a hobby. Just last week, I received a request from the Chicago Art Museum to restore a valuable Victorian study set." "Yes, that's nice," Patricia's voice revealed her lack of interest. "By the way, Caroline and Raymond will arrive tomorrow morning. What time will you get here?" Mary sighed at the change of subject. Her sister Caroline had always been her parents' favorite. She had married a Harvard-educated lawyer, and after divorcing him, married Raymond Harris, an executive at a real estate development company. She had 2 children with her previous husband, 6-year-old Eric and 4-year-old Sophia. "I think around 3 in the afternoon," Mary answered. "I'm looking forward to seeing the children." "Yes, the children are looking forward to seeing you too, especially Eric," Patricia said, but quickly changed the subject. "Caroline is bringing a new Chardonnay she acquired this year. It's from a Napa winery owned by one of her clients. She really has such wonderful connections." Mary nodded silently. Though invisible on the other end of the phone, the gesture was a habit of years. The conversations always followed the same pattern. Her mother would praise her sister's success and only lightly touch on Mary's life choices. After hanging up, Mary stood by the window and held the locket pendant around her neck. It was the only keepsake she had inherited from her grandmother Eleanor. Grandmother was the only one who truly understood and supported Mary's talent and passion. "You have magic in your hands, Mary. The power to breathe new life into old things," her grandmother often said. "Preserving tradition while creating new value, that's the work of a true artist." 5 years had passed since her grandmother died. After her death, the family dynamics became more complex. Grandmother had left a will stating that the family cottage should be inherited equally by Mary and Caroline, but for some reason, her parents had remained vague about the details. Mary had avoided legal disputes with her family. As she closed her suitcase, Mary remembered the call she had received earlier this week. It was from a curator at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. "Ms. Wilson, your reputation is truly impressive. Would you consider working on a set of 18th century Louis XV style desk and chairs that we own? This is an extremely valuable piece that we can only entrust to someone with the highest skill." It was the most significant request of her career. She had just signed the contract but hadn't told her family yet. She didn't think they would truly understand. Caroline would ask, "How much will you earn from that?" Her father would advise her, "This shouldn't remain just a hobby." Her mother would simply smile politely. Before calling a taxi, Mary stopped by her workshop. There was a 19th century rocking chair in restoration. Through delicate handwork, it was regaining its original beauty. She ran her fingers along its curves, enjoying the feel of the wood grain. "Just a few more days until you're finished," she whispered. "Wait for me until I return." Family time at Thanksgiving always brought mixed emotions. Mary looked forward to seeing her niece and nephew, but she was tired of always being treated like the household help. Every year, she was assigned cooking and cleaning duties, while Caroline enjoyed wine and conversation with their parents in the living room. "This year will be different," Mary told herself. "When the museum contract is complete, my life will change." She clutched the locket to her chest, remembering her grandmother's words, "You have a special talent. The day will come when the world recognizes it." The sound of a taxi honking in front of her apartment brought Mary back to reality. Grabbing her suitcase and taking one last look around the room, she headed for the family cottage. At dusk, passing through snowy Massachusetts country roads, Mary finally arrived at the family cottage. The large 2-story colonial-style house maintained its dignity even in the darkness. However, Mary immediately noticed something was wrong. The lights were on inside the house, but neither her parents' car nor Caroline's luxury SUV was in sight. "That's strange," she muttered as she approached the entrance with her heavy suitcase. When she rang the doorbell, she heard the sound of small footsteps running down the hallway. The door opened, and 6-year-old Eric stood there with an anxious face. "Aunt Mary," the boy's expression showed relief. "You really came." "Of course, I promised, didn't I?" Mary hugged her nephew. "Where is everyone?" Instead of answering, Eric called for his sister. 4-year-old Sophia came out from the living room clutching a doll. Her eyes also lit up when she saw Mary. "Aunt Mary." Sophia cried out in her childish voice and ran to Mary. Mary hugged the children while feeling confused, and entered the house. The living room was tidy but empty. "Where are Mom and Dad? Grandpa and Grandma?" Mary asked. Eric silently pointed toward the kitchen. Mary took off her coat and headed to the kitchen with the children. A piece of paper lay on the table. Written on a notepad in Caroline's flowing handwriting. "Mary, Raymond and I had an urgent work matter and had to go to New York. Mom and Dad went to an antique show in Cape Cod. They'll be back tomorrow afternoon, so please take care of the kids until then. There are ingredients in the fridge. The turkey just needs to be roasted." Mary was stunned. Everyone had disappeared on Thanksgiving Eve, leaving just the children behind. Her smartphone rang, displaying a message from Patricia. "Mary, we're so relieved you can watch the children. It suits you like a housekeeper. As usual, make sure the turkey is fully cooked. Last year it was a bit undercooked. See you tomorrow afternoon." Mary felt her face flush with anger. She took a deep breath and smiled at the children. "Let's put away my things, and then make dinner. Are you hungry?" The children nodded eagerly. While making simple pasta for the children, Mary observed them. They seemed to lack their usual energy. Especially Eric, who occasionally looked like he wanted to say something, then quickly looked away. "How's school?" Mary tried to start a conversation. "Good," Eric answered briefly. "My teacher praised my drawing." "That's wonderful. What did you draw?" "A house in the forest," he answered. "But Dad didn't say anything when he saw my drawing." Mary frowned. She had noticed that the children's expressions darkened whenever Raymond was mentioned. When Caroline married Raymond, Mary had sensed a coldness in him. He was a perfect gentleman in social settings, but she had never seen how he behaved when alone with the children. After dinner, Mary gave the children a bath and helped them change into pajamas. While drying Sophia's arm, she noticed a small bruise. "What happened here?" Mary asked gently. "I fell," Sophia answered quickly. However, her eyes remained fixed on the floor. Eric was also changing into his pajamas, and Mary found similar bruises on his upper arm. "Eric, did you fall too?" The boy hesitated for a moment. "Yes, on the stairs. But I'm okay." Anxiety spread through Mary's chest. Could it be? She tried to push away the thought she didn't want to consider. But when Eric woke up from a nightmare in the middle of the night, crying, "Please, stop," her suspicions grew stronger. The next morning, Thanksgiving Day. Mary got up early and began preparing the turkey. The children seemed to be relaxing a bit, hovering around Mary trying to help. "Aunt, look." Sophia proudly showed a paper turkey hat. "Eric helped me make it." Mary smiled. "It's lovely. Will you make one for me too?" The children happily nodded and began crafting at the table. While putting the turkey in the oven, Mary watched the children. She wanted to cherish this time with her niece and nephew whom she rarely saw. Around noon, Raymond called. Mary answered the phone and noticed the children's expressions instantly changed to tension. "Are the kids all right?" Raymond's voice was low, containing something intimidating. "Yes, they're very well. We're having a good time. Make sure you discipline them properly. Especially Eric, he can be disobedient sometimes." Mary frowned. "Don't worry. They're both very good children. After hanging up, Eric asked in a small voice, "Was Dad angry?" "No, he's just concerned," Mary answered gently. However, she sensed the same tension from the children during Caroline's subsequent call. Mary began to believe something was seriously wrong. The children's bruises, their frightened manner, and the same excuse of falling. Everything gave her a bad feeling. In the afternoon, as the good smell of roasting turkey filled the house, Mary continued Thanksgiving crafts with the children. Every time she saw their smiles, her determination grew stronger. Before the family returned tomorrow, she needed to uncover the truth. Before dinner, Mary called her lawyer friend Amanda. While the children watched TV in the living room, she explained the situation in a quiet voice. "You need evidence," Amanda said. "But first, gaining the children's trust is crucial." "I understand," Mary replied. "But I don't have much time. Everyone returns tomorrow." After hanging up, Mary returned to the kitchen. On the table, she had prepared a small Thanksgiving feast. Turkey, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, and pumpkin pie. It might not be perfect, but it was a meal made with love. "Eric, Sophia, dinner time," she called. The children ran into the kitchen, their eyes sparkling. "Wow, amazing!" Eric exclaimed. "It looks more delicious than Mom's turkey." Mary smiled. "Now, before we eat, let's say what we're thankful for." After dinner, Mary gently tucked the children into bed. Sophia fell asleep immediately, but Eric seemed restless in bed. As Mary was about to leave the room, he called out in a small voice. "Aunt, stay a little longer." Mary sat on the edge of the bed, gently stroking Eric's hair. "What's wrong?" "Can't sleep." Outside the window, snow continued to fall quietly, and tree shadows cast fantastic patterns on the room walls in the moonlight. Eric sat up and looked at Mary with a serious expression. "Actually," he began and then stopped. Mary felt her heart beating fast. "What? You can tell me anything." Eric was silent for a while. Then, as if resolved, he began speaking in a small voice. "Actually, Mom and Grandma are planning to kick you out today." Mary felt her whole body begin to tremble. "What do you mean?" "I overheard them talking last week," Eric continued. "After Dad put us to bed, the adults were drinking in the living room and talking. Mom said, we need to make sure Mary can no longer claim rights to the cottage." Mary gasped. "The cottage?" "Yes. The house Grandma left. Mom said, the papers are already prepared. Once she signs after Thanksgiving, it will all be ours." In Mary's mind, her grandmother's words echoed, "This house should be divided equally between my two granddaughters." Grandmother had always treated Mary and Caroline equally. But her parents and Caroline seemed to have different ideas. "Do you know why they're planning this?" Mary asked in a trembling voice. Eric nodded slightly. "Mom said, Mary's business will fail, and she'll soon come asking for help. Then we can have her sign papers giving up her inheritance rights." Mary felt cold anger. Her business was doing well, and she had even received a major commission from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. But her family believed, or hoped, she would fail. "Eric, did you hear anything else?" The boy looked around nervously and continued in an even smaller voice. "Grandpa said, legally, there should be no problem. Eleanor's will has been rewritten." Mary's blood ran cold. Did that mean her grandmother's will had been altered? That was impossible. Grandmother had told Mary before she died to keep a copy of the will. Indeed, Mary had that copy, in a safe at her apartment. "Eric, thank you for telling me," Mary squeezed her nephew's hand. "Is there anything else worrying you?" Tears welled up in Eric's eyes. "I'm scared of Dad," he finally confessed. "He yells at me and Sophia, and grabs our arms tightly. When I tell Mom, she doesn't believe me. She just says, don't tell lies." Mary's suspicions turned to certainty. Raymond was abusing the children, and Caroline was turning a blind eye. And her parents, did they know and do nothing? Dad says, if you tell Aunt Mary anything, worse things will happen, Eric continued in a trembling voice. But I know you're a kind person. You're not like what they all say. What do they say about me? Mary asked fearfully. Mom says, Mary is always jealous. That's why she's lonely. And Grandpa says, she's a disgrace to the family. For a moment, Mary was speechless. It hurt to know how her family viewed her. But there were more important matters now. Eric, listen, she said with a serious expression. There's nothing wrong with you and Sophia. The adults are wrong. I'll do something to make sure you both stay safe. Really? Hope lit up in Eric's eyes. I promise, Mary declared. I won't let anyone hurt you. Eric smiled with relief and gradually fell asleep. Mary sat by the bed for a while, listening to the child's breathing. In her mind, a plan was taking shape. Leaving the room, Mary peeked quietly into Sophia's room. Her young niece showed a peaceful sleeping face. Mary quietly closed the door and returned to her room. With trembling hands, she sent another message to her lawyer friend Amanda. Urgent matter. Need to collect evidence before family returns tomorrow. Possible child abuse and potential falsification of grandmother's will. While waiting for a reply, Mary sat by the window, gazing at the snow-covered landscape. She opened the locket from her neck, which contained a small photo of her grandmother and herself smiling. Help me, Grandma, she whispered. What should I do? Unexpectedly, her smartphone rang. It was a call from Amanda. Mary, what happened? Her friend's voice sounded worried. Mary explained the situation in a low voice. Amanda occasionally asked questions while carefully listening. First, we need to record the children's testimony, Amanda said. And photos of the bruises too. Tomorrow morning, as early as possible. You have a copy of your grandmother's will, right? Yes, at my apartment. Tomorrow morning, my friend Tom will go get it. He's trustworthy. Where are your keys? Mary gave instructions and discussed countermeasures. Mary, Amanda said at the end of the call. You're doing the right thing. The children need you. And you have the right to reveal the truth. After hanging up, Mary sat on the bed but couldn't sleep. Her head was filled with thoughts of her family's betrayal and how to save the children. Past midnight, she heard Sophia's small crying voice. Rushing to the room, she found her young niece trembling, awakened by a nightmare. It's okay, Mary said gently, embracing Sophia. Aunt is here. I dreamed Dad was angry, Sophia sobbed. It's all right now. Dad isn't here. Mary stayed by Sophia's side until she fell asleep again. Feeling the small body relax with relief, Mary strengthened her resolve. She would do anything to protect the children. A confrontation with her family was inevitable. But tonight, she finally knew the truth and was prepared to act. Returning to bed, Mary remembered her grandmother's words, true courage is the power to do the right thing, even when you feel afraid. Tomorrow, her courage would be tested. But now, she needed to gather strength in a short sleep. Outside the window, snow continued to fall quietly, wrapping the house in a white blanket. It seemed to foretell the beginning of something new. Mary took a deep breath and closed her eyes. The next morning, Mary woke before dawn. Outside the window, the snow had stopped, and the morning sun began to tint the snow-covered landscape golden. She immediately began to act. Following Amanda's instructions, she prepared her smartphone's voice recorder and waited for the children to wake up. Eric was the first to rise. Still in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes, he came into the kitchen. Good morning, Eric, Mary smiled gently. Did you sleep well? The boy nodded. Yes. I didn't have any bad dreams. That's good, Mary said while preparing breakfast on the table. Can I ask you a bit more about what you told me last night? It's very important. Eric hesitated for a moment but nodded after seeing Mary's serious expression. Mary casually activated her smartphone's recorder. Can you tell me again what Dad did to you and Sophia? Eric began speaking in a small voice. He detailed how his stepfather Raymond frightened them, sometimes grabbing their arms or pushing them against the wall. When he told his mother Caroline, she either didn't believe him or just advised, "Don't make Dad angry." "Can you show me this bruise too?" Mary asked quietly. Eric rolled up his sleeve, revealing the still blue-black bruise. Mary took a photo and noted the location and date of the injury. After a while, Sophia also woke up. Mary similarly drew out her testimony and recorded the bruises on her body. The children seemed to gradually open their hearts as they could talk to a trustworthy adult. After breakfast, Mary exchanged messages with Amanda while letting the children watch TV. She received word that the copy of her grandmother's will had been successfully retrieved from her apartment and was now in Amanda's possession. "It's completely legally valid," Amanda wrote. "Your grandmother clearly states that the cottage should be divided equally between you and Caroline. Furthermore, the executor is not your parents but your grandmother's lawyer, James Hamilton." Mary sighed with relief. The evidence was coming together. Amanda continued to report that she had also contacted Child Protective Services and the police. They would examine the evidence and decide on action. "What time is your family returning?" Amanda asked. "Around noon," they said, Mary replied. As the morning passed, Mary prepared lunch with the children using Thanksgiving leftovers. She tried to appear calm, but her heart was pounding. For years, she had been treated as the worthless one in her family. And now, she was standing up to reveal the truth. Shortly after noon, car sounds were heard. Eric and Sophia rushed to the window, then turned to Mary with tense expressions. "It's going to be okay," Mary hugged the children. "Aunt is here with you." Caroline and Raymond entered first. Behind them followed Patricia and Robert. All appeared cheerful, carrying shopping bags and gift bags. "Mary," Caroline called out in a bright voice. "Were the children all right? Was the turkey delicious?" Mary silently stared at them. At her silence, the smiles of the adults who had entered slowly faded. "We need to talk," Mary finally spoke. "Can you all gather in the living room?" "Did something happen?" Patricia asked. Her eyes moved from Mary to the children. "Children, go upstairs," Mary said gently. "The adults need to talk." Eric and Sophia quickly nodded and ran up the stairs. Raymond frowned but said nothing. Gathered in the living room, Mary placed a copy of her grandmother's will on the coffee table. "What is this?" Robert asked. "This is grandmother's real will," Mary answered. "My lawyer and I have confirmed it. The cottage is to be divided equally between Caroline and me. Not as you've been telling me." The air in the room froze. Caroline was the first to react. "What do you mean? Who told you such a thing?" "Eric," Mary answered quietly. "He heard your conversations. You were planning to trick me into giving up my rights, weren't you?" Robert stood up. "Nonsense. You believe a child." "Not just Eric," Mary took out her smartphone. "I have evidence." She began playing the recording. The small voices of Eric and Sophia echoed in the room, telling of their fear and pain. Next, she showed photos of the bruises on the children's bodies. "What is this supposed to mean?" Raymond said in a dangerous voice. "Child abuse," Mary looked straight at him. "And you all knew about it. At the very least, you suspected but ignored it." Caroline's face turned pale. "Mary, what are you saying? The children are just lying. They just want attention." "Enough." Mary's voice resonated through the room. "I won't be silent anymore. Trying to forge grandmother's will, turning a blind eye to child abuse. Is this what a real family does?" Raymond suddenly took a step toward Mary. "You can't prove anything." "The police and Child Protective Services have already been notified," Mary said calmly. "They have all the evidence." Patricia nodded like a conspirator. "Mary, you're trying to divide the family. You've always been jealous." At that moment, the doorbell rang. Mary looked at the clock. "Right on schedule." "That's the police," she said. for interviews with the children and questions for Raymond. Watching her panicking family, Mary went to the door. Opening it, there stood a male police officer in uniform and a female social worker in a suit. "Are you Mary Wilson?" the officer asked. "We've come about a report of child abuse." "Yes, please come in," Mary invited them in. Returning to the living room, Raymond's face was red with anger. Caroline had begun to cry, and her parents were stunned. "Real family isn't about blood ties, but love and trust," Mary said quietly. "Children have the right to be safe and loved. And I have the right for the truth to be revealed." The officer approached Raymond and began explaining the situation. The social worker spoke to Caroline. Mary went upstairs to the waiting children. "It's going to be all right," she embraced the two. "No one will hurt you anymore." Outside the snow-covered windows, a new day was beginning. It was a day of pain and truth, but also a day of new beginnings. Mary clutched her grandmother's locket, grateful for the courage it had given her. 3 months after Thanksgiving, many things had changed. The court had recognized Mary as a temporary guardian for Eric and Sophia, and with funds from selling valuable antique furniture she had restored, she had rented a spacious apartment with rooms for the children. The 2-story brownstone house was vastly different from her former small apartment. In the living room stood a 19th-century sofa she had restored by hand, and the walls were decorated with the children's drawings. The house that was once quiet was now filled with children's laughter. Eric had begun making friends at his new school, and Sophia was blooming at a neighborhood kindergarten. The shadows of fear that had dwelled in their eyes were gradually fading, replaced by curiosity and a sense of security. Raymond was detained on charges of child abuse, unable to pay bail, with a trial scheduled to begin soon. At first, Caroline had blamed Mary with fierce anger and denial. Her parents similarly loudly claimed that Mary had kidnapped their grandchildren. However, as police evidence and the children's testimonies accumulated, their attitudes began to change. Especially Caroline had to face the gravity of her husband's actions. She had begun counseling and occasionally came to visit the children. Those visits were initially tense but gradually became more amicable. The parents still kept their distance. The social status they had built was shaken, and many of their friends had distanced themselves. Regarding grandmother's will, legal investigations were progressing, revealing that the parents had intentionally concealed it. On a rainy Saturday afternoon, the doorbell rang. When Mary opened it, Caroline was standing there. She looked tired but had gentler eyes than before. "May I come in?" Caroline asked in a small voice. Mary silently opened the door and invited her sister in. Drinking coffee in the living room, Caroline finally spoke. "Mary, I was also his victim," she confessed tearfully. "Raymond, from the beginning of our marriage, there was psychological control and intimidation. I couldn't report the children's situation. I was frozen with fear." Despite her complex emotions, Mary saw the suffering etched on her sister's face. "I wanted your strength," Caroline continued. "You always walked your own path. In trying to meet our parents' expectations, I lost myself." Regarding the family inheritance issue, Caroline frankly admitted, "I just did what our parents told me. But now, I want to resolve it legally correctly. As grandmother wished." That year's Thanksgiving, a modest dinner was held at Mary's new home. On the table was a turkey with all the trimmings that she had prepared with care. Caroline continued her counseling and was gradually repairing her relationship with the children. The parents were not invited, they were still justifying their actions. Before the meal, Eric proposed a small toast in a quiet voice. "To Aunt Mary who protected us. Thank you for teaching us that real family means people who help when you're in trouble." Sophia added, "Mom is trying hard too." With her grandmother's locket pendant against her chest, Mary felt a new form of family bond emerging. Caroline and Mary smiled at each other, understanding that family isn't just about blood ties, but love, mutual respect, and the will to stand together in difficult times. Outside the window, the first snow had begun to fall again. But this year's winter heralded a new beginning.